And now I'm delighted that we're going to be joined by Gary Maclean, Scotland's national chef, and also the leading person behind, Professor at Large, everything of the City of Glasgow College. Gary, you're going to have to give me your full correct title because I know that it's a very wonderful long one and I butchered it terribly. But Gary, we're joining you today because it's Burns season. It's not one day, it's for several weeks. We're going to be thinking about the wonderful legacy of Robert Burns, celebrated around the world. And I thought we should catch up with you to find out what is it that makes a Burns supper, and to hear from you about some of the exceptional ones you've done since becoming Scotland's national chef.
No, well, thanks for having us. And you're right there. Burns has become such a big deal. It used to be just one night, that 25th, but I mean, this year we've definitely got 2 weeks worth. I know we have with our New York one, and you are going to join us in Glasgow on the 25th. So it's quite an incredible way that I think Burns has changed, particularly in Scotland. I know in the US there's a lot of societies, and I think there's like 1,200 Burns suppers going on in the 25th alone in the US. But it's nice to see in Scotland that we're now making it a bigger deal. And it's the kind of night, I think it's ideal because it's dark and dreary January, and anything that gets us out the house and gets people, socializing and celebrating in January is a good thing.
Well, the wonderful thing about a Burns supper is, yes, our societies and organizations host them, but I've been to some wonderful Burns suppers just where we've got together as a group of friends, got out a book of his wonderful verse, and pulled one together. So, I mean, it's really, as you say, the celebration and the camaraderie, isn't it?
I think, I've thought long and hard, and I've written chapters. My latest book's got a full chapter dedicated to this one night. And I don't think we would be eating haggis in Scotland if it wasn't for Rabbi Burns, and the address to the haggis. It's something we've held on to. And what maybe a lot of people don't know is in Scotland, we do buy haggis a lot. Our kids eat it, and it's a fairly normal dish, or a fairly normal ingredient. You'll find it in lots and lots and lots of restaurants in Scotland, particularly in Glasgow and Edinburgh, where you'll be able to get haggis in so many different ways.
Well, I love eating haggis normally, as you say, but there's a whole tradition to it, to the presenting of it, to the addressing of it, and how we serve it, and what we have to have. I was terribly worried when somebody suggested we should change away from, having our swedes and potatoes and the nips and tatties. I mean, you need to keep it traditional on Burns night.
I think as long as there's elements there, I think you do need potatoes and you do need neeps, but you can mess about with it a wee bit. You can change the textures. You can even change, I think you're going to have a couple of great Burns dinners coming up in the next few weeks, but the one in Glasgow is definitely a modern twist on haggis, which I'm very much looking forward to putting together.
So over here, we cannot buy traditional haggis. They don't allow that, to bring it in from Scotland, but they have some quite good takes on it. And the Caledonian Kitchen haggis is very good. But this new thing about vegetarian and vegan haggis has really taken off, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think in the States, the McSween's veggie haggis, or veggie crumble as it's called there, is a great alternative to actual regular haggis. I think it's pretty close to being like Scottish haggis. And I think the veggie haggis can sometimes be better than some of the American takes on a meat haggis. Caledonia Kitchens is very good though. I'll give them that definite. It's probably the closest I've had in the States.
Well, Peter Wilson, who's very much involved in that through the Scottish Heritage USA and a Scottish grocer, I think is very proud of how he's helped to develop that over the years, so that
Yeah,
it
no,
reminds
most
him
definitely.
of being back in Scotland. So I think
Yeah,
we've got a lot of people who put a lot of effort into it, haven't we?
no, definitely. And I think the thing that we're not allowed to have in American haggis is the lungs. And the lungs are texture and they really change it, you know, and lungs don't taste of anything. So when I think sometimes when American butchers try and replicate Scottish haggis, they get the recipe, they can't put lungs in. I think sometimes they put in too much liver and it ends up being a kind of gamey type dish. And haggis isn't gamey at all, not at all. It's all about texture and flavour and spice. So it takes it a completely different direction sometimes.
So a burn supper, what are the key elements for you? Because also you are the king of desserts. And I think that that's important too.
I think to be fair, every course has got to be good. And it's full of, it's one of the nights, I think the closest thing you could sort of, the closest thing I think is a wedding, you know, but the bride and groom are the chieftain haggis. You know, they're the stars of the show. And it's one of the nights where people can get dressed up, where people can unashamedly enjoy, you know, some amazing food and just have a little bit of tradition, you know, and that's what I like about it. I like the pomp and circumstance. I love the fact that there's always a piper. I love the fact that food is centre court, you know, and Scottish food is centre court as part of that Burns celebration.
I think also, the verse of Burns interspersed with the food makes
Yeah,
it such
definitely.
an immersive evening.
Yeah,
And I've been to burn suppers where we've all been asked to, take part and bring a verse or do something.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I love also the music, having a chance to celebrate that. So,
yeah.
what do you, for you, do you think what do you suggest we start with ahead of the haggis?
I think I think the tradition is, and I know that your burn supper we always kick it off with an amazing selection of smoked salmon. You know, and again, I think most people kind of think when they see that table, it's the beginning of a great feast. You know, it's a luxury item. It's flown in from Scotland, and I think people just get a real sense of what's coming next
Well, we're
when they
very
get to
lucky
that
that
table.
Baker Frost, Locklander are so good to us and
Yeah,
love being involved. And Scottish salmon really is exceptional. There is a
yeah.
difference.
Especially the salmon from Bakerfrost as well. The native Hebridean smoked salmon's the best smoked salmon I've ever tasted, and we've been lucky enough to get that for our dinners over the years.
No, beautiful. So we've got the salmon, we've got our haggis. Then sometimes people make the haggis a smaller portion and they bring in
Yeah,
then something else after that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends on whether you're doing totally traditional with haggis, neeps, and tatties as the main course. I tend to bring it in earlier. I bring it in as a kind of as a starter,
Right.
and do a kind of smaller portion. And then it gives you a little bit of flexibility throughout the meal to kind of showcase some other amazing Scottish ingredients.
And then what's your favorite dessert to cap it all off with? I know what mine is, but
I think on those nights, it's always Cranachan. And
I
I'm not
agree.
100% sure why, because raspberries are out of season. So I don't know why Cranachan has become that go-to. And again, I tend to try and get Cranachan involved in the dessert, whether you're turning it into a kind of Cranachan souffle where you can use kind of raspberry jam as a base, or um, um you know, this year I'm going to do a Cranachan ice cream along with an Eckelfecken tart, which is a bit more in season and something a wee bit different that a lot of the guests would never have seen before. So
And I've
looking
slipped in
forward to it.
some mince pies too. I don't know if
I
you've
saw
noticed
that
that.
as well. Yeah, and mince pies isn't a thing that Americans would normally eat. Is it?
Well, I love them. And
I think it's most definitely a British tradition. I think.
I know, and but they are catching on here. They're selling out all the time. Walker's does these lovely little ones, and
I've seen
they
them, yeah.
sell out all the time. And so when they said, would we like some? I thought that we could slip them in alongside the Kraken.
No, most definitely, most definitely. And I think the Ecclefechan tart is very similar to mince pie. You know, it's got the same kind of ingredients. It's got a bit of citrus in there. It's got some nuts and loads of dried fruit. So it's kind of similar. And I'm sure one of the big supermarkets, I think Waitrose, one year did Ecclefechan tart instead of mince pies. So they did the kind of Ecclefechan tart alternative.
If people, your book has, as you say, a whole chapter on how to create a wonderful burnt supper, and also includes the vegetarian options. So that's a great thing. And they can
again, there's a whole chapter on haggis, and every one of I think there's 10 or 11 haggis recipes, and every one of them can be you could use vegetarian haggis and get the exact same result, which is pretty cool.
So there's an extra reason to go to Amazon and get hold of your copy right away. Thank you, Gary. I'll see you in a few days, and onwards to burn season.
Brilliant. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.